At this point, we are going to invite three of our panelists who will each share a bit about their role, their organization, and the work that they're doing. So first stop, I would like to invite Barry Chin, the marine biologist at the Datai Langkawi in Malaysia, who will talk about his work protecting the rich marine life around the property and how they are putting conservation through conversations into practice, engaging communities, guests, and colleagues to make conservation a shared responsibility. Now, over to you, Barry.
All right, thanks, Irene, on the little what's this introduction. Now I'm gonna just do a little sharing in terms of my previous work and my current work right now. Yeah. So basically, if you haven't yet got to visit the Datai, this is a little bit whole entire overview of the resort. Well, you can see it's quite a rare property that has all in one in terms of ocean, in terms of resort, in terms of luxury, in terms of even mangrove forests, all of it at the same time. But let me just show you a little piece of what is, my work all over the world and all. So just a little bits of me, started off with all the way. A lot of people would more familiar wise in terms of whereas Sabah, we usually just introduce ourselves as Borneans. So all the way there, a lot of people would know us as from, what's this, a land of orangutan, a land of crocodiles, a land of hornbills as well. But ocean is quite underrated, I would say, in terms of all the places that I ever got to dive. Top 5 ever? Yeah. So just my starting as conservation wise, actually before I got to do any conservation work, it was just purely diving. It was just working as a dive master. It was assisting on dive centers as well, just guiding dives repetitively, but then slowly but surely I can see there is changes actually. So I had the idea of why not just relive my dreams of becoming a marine biologist ever since I actually have this thought when I was 9. So joined in a couple of conservation groups and also freelancing everywhere as well, anywhere that I can get my experience and also just to build up connections. So there are some work that are like just simple old reef assessment, guided dives as well as usual of work. But then most importantly is actually the coral planting and also community outreach, telling people what is coral. Because you would be surprised, quite a lot of the Bajau Louts, a lot of people are thinking about like their superpower in terms of having a huge lung in the water, doing spear fishing, hunting, like really, really the ocean seaside of a people community. But to them, corals are just colorful rocks. They didn't understand what is a coral. So that's where our job comes in. And then I build up my expertise in terms of photography and also more in terms of all of the, skill sets to plant corals in various conditions and also different methods as well. So there's the frame management, because when I was there in Sulawesi, the organization that I joined in, they already planted thousands and thousands of frames. So a lot of minor details they have to orientate themselves, especially when the sea is very moody most of the time. And there's also old-fashioned old coral gardening, identifying which type of coral is safe for planting all over the region. But there's also, we got to learn that some corals, they are quite territorial. If you plant them wrongly, they can actually kill all of the corals that are around the area, actually. Yeah. And also, good old photography, trying to show the people what is under the world and all. Right, next stop, it's being in the Maldives. That was actually last year. Last year I was there to help out on research as well. We actually, that was the first time that I ever got to do a coral polyp of a research. I didn't know there was most of the time that we only got to see in the books, but actually happening in real lifetime, like at night, getting to see kind of like a snowstorm, but in reverse. It's actually just the eggs of the corals being left on. So it's quite amazing. We get to document these little details of it. And then also, not to mention, forgetting about turtle rehabilitation. Uh, in the Maldives, there is actually quite a lot of nets caught, like the turtles from Sri Lanka, from India, and just everywhere in the Indian Ocean. Unfortunately, you can see in the detail of the picture, the turtle is actually unfortunately amputated because of nets being caught up to their limbs and they get stuck. So our job is actually try to help them to get used back in towards the sea, because when they panic, they tend to have what's this buoyancy disorder. They can't dive back into the sea. So some we manage to put back into the ocean. Well, some we try to find home and send them towards, for example, aquatic centers, or like there's one example is we managed to send one of the turtles to Marina Bay Sands. And also, what's this, excursion trips, like getting to show the guests the nurse sharks, the pilot whales, the spinner dolphins, all that good stuff, trying to show them the little glamour and acrobatics of the ocean. And right now, currently in the Datai, back in Malaysia, I kind of missed food, so I came back all the way here. And then, not to mention, get back in towards helping out, learning all that knowledge out there and going back to the roots. So helping the kids as well, helping mom and dad to have a little bonding session on little plankton workshops. We also get to bring guests out with our collaborative partners, Marisa. That's our good old partner as well, on marine cetacean research, showing them the Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin, quite a long name. But then we simplify it as just telling them the Langkawi pink dolphin. The older they get, the more pinkish they become as well. And also mention, still focusing on research and consultation, and whether or not is there any of the construction, is there any changes of the resort that is going to affect the ocean and also the river, because well, utilizing back what I learned in the university, aquatic sciences and all. So not just in salt water, but also some points of fresh water I can also contribute. The guided walks as well, in the Datai Langkawi. Again, right back at just now where I got started, in terms of introducing the resort, there's a little bit of everything. So for us, even as a marine biologist, we got to learn, like bird watching, all the facts about the plants, the history of the resort. We get to share the guests as well. All of these, what's this knowledge? And then, well, the basic emergency for what's this, the wildlife, like for example, fishes that suddenly got stranded at the shore or even at the bay. And then sometimes there is as well all around Langkawi, because we don't really have any veterinarian. So the only thing that we can do is try to give them a little physio. For like examples, turtle, they got stranded. Fishes, we do try to get into the water and get back them in towards where they should be, which is out of the resort and in towards the open sea. So that's just a little bit about what I do, previously as a start of a conservationist till right now as a marine biologist right now. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that, Barry. So I have a few questions for you later on, but at this point, I'd like to invite the two ladies on screen. So we are going to hear both from Juliet Kinsman, who, by the way, is the Datai's Pledge ambassador. Juliet will be sharing to us all about the Datai Pledge. And for Juliet, she's actually more into celebrating how the work that you do, Barry, the initiatives and everything that you do for the conversation efforts of the Datai is actually being put into the community, and at the same time also encourages the travel experiences that go to the extra mile for both people and planet. And so this really inspires a lot of the guests and the team to make the mindful and sustainable choices. And then, of course, we also are going to hear from Jo Hendry-Prior, the co-founder of Alchemist Travel, and being a travel consultant. from the travel businesses, Jo this afternoon will also provide insights on how travel can be designed to support meaningful experiences while fostering sustainable practices, showing how the travel industry can be a positive force for change. So let's hear it first from Juliet and then Jo. Juliet, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Well, I'm gonna pull a Brené Brown and express some vulnerability. I'm not very well, and I've been awake all night sneezing. I never understand what change in the seasons means, but that's what everyone says when you get a cold this time of year. So excuse me, but I will speak to you with genuine and enthusiastic passion around the Datai Pledge. So it was lovely to hear from Barry. I was reflecting on all he said, and I was thinking it's a lot of information to digest, isn't it? And it's even better when I'm sure when Barry is taking you through it all, when you're actually there in nature, living it, seeing it, breathing it. So I have had the great pleasure of working with the Datai for a few years. You can call me the ambassador, absolutely. But really, I don't call myself a storyteller. I like to think of myself as the conduit for other stories. And it's really important. We keep hearing this word. It's everywhere. It's on LinkedIn. Everyone calls themselves a storyteller. And I often think, are you a storyteller or are you a marketer? Now, the most powerful stories, as we know, are those and I speak as a journalist for many, many years, those stories that take something complex and make them digestible. And that's our job as a journalist. But what's really powerful about stories when they're shared somewhere, such as the Datai Langkawi, about their community work, about their conservation work, is I think that it helps people feel it. A really, really good story actually puts you in that situation where you feel or access what it feels like to really, really live whatever it is they're talking about. And I'll share some ideas on how best to do this. People on the call might find that helpful because I think there's so many words now, there's a proliferation of words, a lot generated by AI. So everyone's saying the same thing. But for me, if you just take away from my sharing of my experiences, the best stories come from a place of authentic passion. And I've had the great pleasure in the last couple of weeks of teaching. I think I'm going into my I don't want to call myself academic, my educator era. I really love teaching at the University of Surrey and with the Bull in Totnes. And there's nothing I love more. And really teaching is telling great stories where you take science or logic or facts and you deliver it in a way that people are, well, all looking at you and listening for a start, which is a good metric of whether it's working. And you help bring them into it. So let me share a story then. Let me try and do this quickly. Imagine the sound, zig, zig, zig. It's a very distinct sound. Maybe Barry recognizes it. It sounds a little bit like the power drill I can hear outside on my street in London on the scaffolders across the road, but it isn't that. It's the jade green cicadas in the millions 10 million year old rainforest, I think, in Langkawi. And those jade green cicadas making that noise, and you feel it, and you're really there in situ. Now imagine Irshad Mobrak. He has been he's the driving force behind the Datai Pledge, which is the Datai's commitment to sustainability through different pillars. And Irshad, many people will consider him their gateway drug into an addiction to nature because the way he talks you through it and explains nature is so powerful. So there I am with him, hearing Irshad, and he's getting me excited about fig wasps. And he's explaining that there are 138 different species just of the fig wasp. And that fig wasp is the only pollinator for its companion fig tree. Now that's key because in these changing times, whether it's development and human deforestation, you're taking away the habitat, whether it's changing climate, if we lose those species, just one of those species, the cascading effect is profound. They are apex pollinators. They are, of course, keystone species. And we hear a lot of these words in our world, but do they really land and resonate? And that is the power of storytelling in nature from conservationists through people who are passionate and knowledgeable. Now, I really talk about how the power of storytelling, everybody does now. But I really wonder whether people think about that story, whether it's truly, truly engaging people with their hearts. And I think if you look at, well, I for the Datai, I've codified it in the way that we call it here. You hear a story, it connects with your heart, then it makes sense to your head, and then hopefully it converts into behavioral change. It converts to your hands. So we call it our here, heart, head, hands. I look like I'm doing a primary school dance. But it really helps everyone internally understand why we need to tell powerful stories. So going back to those keystone species and understanding that, I think it's really important because people don't understand how significant it is, the loss of biodiversity. It is the flip side of the climate emergency, the biodiversity crisis. That is what the long run is all about. That is what all your members are working so hard to do. And that is why staying with your member properties is so important. And I think if we can help that message of why biodiversity matters land, that is impact. And if that's guests on holiday, understanding that biodiversity extends to what's on our plate, to what we drink, everything we do, whether we live in a city or whether we live in a rural area. And of course, those keystone species, when they're explained to you there and you picture the architecture of all living species, life on Earth, and you remove one of those species, kind of like Jenga, it's going to start collapsing. They might understand it better. So let me see. I'll give you one more minute of some thoughts. How does this work? What is the neuroscience? What's the psychology? Well, stories that trigger emotions and we feel something are the ones that activate the part of our brain that really commit it to memory. It's really important. And honestly, I see so many people reading these days and reading things that ChatGPT can bring up in a minute, make me sound like Irshad Mobrak. But unless you speak it from the heart and you feel those stories, you can't pass on that emotion. That's my experience. I've recently really felt excited about hearing about earthworms at a Karubi farm in the south of France. I was just at 42 acres where they were explaining to me the energy of the land in the land. It's feeling those stories from people who are authentically passionate. I can share with you in the chat some links to things that I've shared, podcast and notes on this. But let me leave you with the BAB theory. It's asking you to be the bridge. It's how the Datai is the bridge. So imagine painting a picture of a story of the before. Something that's broken. You're talking about land that's losing its trees, losing all the species it supports. Devastation. What is the after, the A? The after is the vision of what could be when luxury tourism or travel supports nature, supports that biodiversity. What's the bridge? The bridge is the magic of the mechanism of helping people understand how perhaps the Datai Langkawi being a great example is the bridge between the before, losing nature, to the after, saving nature. So that BAB framework really, really helps us and really helps us enrich guest experiences by sharing stories that matter from the heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Juliet. That was powerful and that was great energy. I should say that because but yeah, thank you so much for that. Yes, and but thank you. I actually have listed here a lot, and I think we still have time for questions after we hear from Jo. So Jo, the floor is yours. I'm afraid you're still on mute. One moment. Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. All right.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of the Datai and I've been lucky enough to be there, go there a few times. So I'm looking forward to chatting to you. A little introduction on Alchemist. We set up Alchemist Travel in 2022, so a little over 2 years ago, with two co-founders, Lauren Rapps from New York and Steph Weatherall from London. We had all been working in travel for a long time in various different capacities and really had just been actually talking about it for a while. We were really driven by a huge passion to build a luxury travel company that really changed the way that people thought about travel, that fundamentally made a difference to the destinations and the people that we had personally fallen in love with over the many years of working in travel and traveling for our personal enjoyment. And we wanted to create a host agency that offered opportunities to people who shared this passion with us, with transferable skills. You could come in and, you know, go from being a florist or a teacher or whatever it was, and start a new career in luxury travel, and help us on our mission to change the narrative around it. So we're a host agency. We specialize in creating highly curated, personalized trips that are very much deeply considered, and ensuring that the tourism dollar of all of our clients' trips that are spent with Alchemist goes really where it's needed. We felt this was kind of slightly lacking in a lot of in the tourism industry and travel among travel agents, specifically, particularly in Asia and Singapore. So, and we'd kind of seen really firsthand where tourism had made a massive difference to places and had a huge power, and where it had the negative effect. So we really were driven by that huge amount of passion. When researching Alchemist, we like to think of ourselves as private wealth managers for time, maximizing the return on investment for people's time. And so actually we started researching and speaking to private wealth managers and saying, what are your clients saying to you? What do they want? What are they investing in? What's their return on investment that they're going for? And impact investment. It came up and up and up. And we were like, we are on the button with this. These are our target clients. We are really passionate about doing impact investments for their time. And so we thought, you know, let's really kind of do something about this and make sure that we're speaking to those people in the right way. So we set up Alchemist Travel, and then obviously we do have a lot of kind of high net worth clients. We don't always hands in the air. Our trips are not always 100% sustainable and eco-friendly and very, very low carbon emissions, all the rest of it. So we've also set up a foundation. 2% of all of our profits go towards that foundation, and we invest in grassroots projects. Projects that we can really fundamentally see the difference that our investment has made. And so we've done a food and beverage 6-week training program with Simba Hospitality Foundation. We've built houses in Myanmar that used to belong to our guides with Kiri Reach. We're doing an Everest-based camp scholarship program at the moment with women that want to get into mountaineering. We're doing a conservation education program with Ol Pajeta and Asilia. So we can genuinely see the difference that investment's made on the ground with people and the destinations that we're sending our clients to. And then also, as I said, we were really driven by kind of bringing people in with transferable skills. And so we have an academy where we train people. We've got a 6-week training program, which we're in the middle of doing at the moment, that Rosie very kindly was involved in this week. We give all our consultants as much training and support, the tools that they need and the contacts that they need so that they can go on to be successful travel consultants. And a big part of that is teaching them what sustainable travel looks like, how you communicate that with your clients. We put together impact reports for our clients, but yes, it is that's a big thing of what we're doing at the moment. And I think the communication with our clients is probably a big thing of what we're going to go on to talk about.
All right. Yes, that's right. And thank you so much for sharing Alchemist Travel to us, Jo. And yes, so you're actually right, Jo, when you mentioned that this session really talks about communications, from what Barry does on the ground, from converting all those work into something very interesting with the guest. It's not just about sharing experience, but at the same time, sharing the stories. And also, Juliet, I just want to pick up because you were actually sharing, for these stories of authentic passion to really land, to really resonate. And also, Jo was sharing that communications is really important, especially when the impacts needs to be communicated now to the guest. So with that, I just want to pick up your brains, especially from you, Jo, coming from, being a travel consultant, coming from the client experience. You want to ensure that they will actually capture, especially that you are also supporting grassroots projects, and that's something impactful already. So how do you try to choose your partners like the Datai, to be able to make sure that when working with destinations like them, how does that conservation work or the commitments influence you choose your partners, as well as designing journeys for your clients? And if you're seeing this changing or shifting the habits or expectations among travelers.
So we do quite a lot of due diligence on all of our properties and all the our partners on and obviously using the 4C framework, we work out kind of where each of them are on that on the scale, and we have integrated that into our CRM. We've built our own CRM and we've integrated that in, so that actually when the clients go on a trip, they get an impact report afterwards saying, illustrating where their tourism dollar's gone from that trip. So it gives them a real tangible understanding of the difference that they've made from their trip. We also market ourselves as being a sustainable luxury travel company. But when it comes down to talking to our clients, we are very much about creating a bespoke experience that is right for them, that we know will give them the best experience, and that we don't have to sit and say you have to go to the Datai because they didn't cut down any trees when they built the property and they've got the most amazing population of hornbills there. We don't have to say that. We don't have to tell them that they're going on a super eco-friendly, sustainable trip. It's all about the experience. It's all about that emotional connection that they get that when they're there. Recently I went to Six Senses Lamu, and I'd been there 10 years before, and they've got now seagrass everywhere, and so there are turtles everywhere. And it's things like that. And Barry and I were talking about at the Datai, in your room you get this beautiful little booklet of hand sketched pictures of the birds that you can see, and all these things, they're part of the experience. It's that immersive experience where you actually see with your own eyes, God, this is the impact that the conservation efforts have actually had. And it creates a authentic, much more amazing trip and experience, and it's without having to kind of really hone in on like, this is what you're doing and this is why we're sustainable and things like that. People don't want lectures. They certainly don't want lectures on holidays, and they don't necessarily, especially a lot of, I would say, I do think people, I find a lot of our Singapore clients, and naming no names, and this is very, for us, they are not driven by a sustainable experience, but once they're there and they have it, it's transformative. And I think also we were saying earlier, like the new generation, like I've had clients who've gone on trips, or they've been to places like the Datai with their teenage kids or whatever, and they've grown up there, and they've been on walks with the likes of Barry, and they've actually, that's been so inspiring. And and I think it's a huge part of the experience.
Yes, that's actually true, and I really agree on that one. So this is also where, Julie, here comes wherein you actually try to, with the Datai Pledge, what you were trying to do here is that you connect the habits, the organization's habits, right? And you actually have this guide for everybody. But then, of course, I just want to bring up the question, hearing Jo right now, wherein how does the Datai make sure that your conservation efforts, because Jo was actually sharing that, it's not somehow shoved into our throats, if I am a guest right there going to the Datai. It's actually something that, The conservation efforts is shaped not only by the guest experience, but it's really more about the story. And so how do you ensure that this story is really shared how it is authentically beyond the property with partners like the Alchemist Travel, for example?
Well, we certainly spent a lot of time thinking about what they do. And I spent quite a few weeks there last year. It took a long time to really, get under lift up the bonnet, I should say, and have a look at what was happening, for me to really understand all that they were doing and the nuances and articulate it in a way that was interesting or perhaps new to people. And so I loved working with the team there, and it was such a learning for me, learning about why, stray dogs are a real threat to biodiversity because of their role. And I think there were things, obviously I work across, I'm privileged to receive so much information about so many hotels that I know what is fresh and new. So we look at what's a new way of sharing stories. The impact report is in every room. It's really easy to read and understand. But what all of us are talking about, and when I hear Jo, and I think we could do, we really need to think about, is we live in a world where people are obsessed with how things look and external, and they choose their holiday on pictures. But really what we're talking about is feelings and how a property makes us feel once we're there. And what Jo's talking about is I love that idea of a little impact report for them on their trip afterwards. It's about how it makes them feel. And I think we're in the business of cultivating feelings. We remember holidays that made us feel good, but it's hard to gauge when everyone's saying the same thing. How do we know how that hotel will feel? And so I think you do still have the actual excellent hotel experience, and then we just slip in the sustainability. Well, we don't talk about it as sustainability. We talk about projects that are really exciting with maybe it's the local they really taught me a lot myself, actually, when I spend time there. But the women who are single mothers, it's harder in their cultural society to get jobs, to support their family. And then, of course, they talk about how this collective of women is taking all the leftover candles and melting them down and recreating new candles. So the sustainability story is the candle waste, which isn't the most exciting. It's meeting those women and seeing what they do and understanding that sometimes impact doesn't need to be huge, impressive numbers about something. It's just about those individual human stories and connecting you with those while you're there. And I think people connect with people. And it's like I say, it's how it makes you feel.
That's a strong takeaway for the audience, I believe, because it's also a very strong takeaway from me. And then going to Barry, actually, you are there facing the guests, facing those and making them feel, the excitement of what they can already be part of when they actually engage with the projects, both with the marine environment and even in the terrestrial when they get to see all those hornbills, right? But then for you, thinking of all these on the ground, and also drawing from your own experience, what does it take for protecting habitats to become something that is sustained over time rather than just a project? And also to just have a quick follow-up on that, what's the challenge in making it part of your daily operations?
Wow. So basically, I'm gonna answer the daily challenges is definitely making sure that we spending not too long of a time actually entertaining the guests, sharing stories of here and there. Oh, you got to go to here, you got to see this as well, all of this, and it's just the guests. You can see their eyes really lit up when they actually see the wildlife out there and actually like how Juliet get to mention, like experiencing it firsthand. And that is what, maybe some of the guesses from Jo as well. But definitely, that is the difficult point of the work. That is the only challenges that we have is, really had too good of a time until we like forgot about actually doing the conservation then. But then in terms of the conservation work, instead of just a project, this is a little advice as well for not just for me myself, but also all the other resorts that I got to encounter as well, a little bit of a sightseeing or even experiencing firsthand. Try not to have too many ongoing projects. I have seen like resorts having 10, 20, or even 50 ongoing projects. But that's just it. It only maintains as a project because there is not a achievable goal in that little time frame or even that whole entire consensus of the budgeting. So in the Datai, yes, we're running a luxury experience as well, but at the same time, we still have to make an impact of the little bay that we have. We are a resort. We are not a governmental body or a, what's this, NGO of a program. But that's the thing. We can tell tickets up or go on. Yeah.
I was
Yes, Juliet.
Barry, I loved what you're saying. I just wanted to, just as a side note to that, you're making a very important point, which is that a hotel can act as part, if you look at its role alongside public sector, private sector, we are private sector, alongside the NGOs, it's that triangulated activity and thinking and joining the dots. So it's, whilst it's not a government property as such, I mean, the Datai is very open about the fact it is owned by it is the asset owned by the government's private sector wing. I'm sorry, I'm not articulating it very well. Forgive me. But my point is, it's like we need biodiversity in business, is what I'm saying. We need to join the dots between all these different organizations who work together. They have aligned goals. And that is what the Datai does very, very well. And that's why you need that, cooperation between different entities.
Yes, thanks so much, Juliet. Actually, it does also resonates to what Dr. Really was saying at the beginning of the call, wherein ecology should be part of all of those tourism degrees and courses, right? But it has been very interesting. I really feel that the audience actually has lots of questions, and some of them are now popping up in the chat box. I'd like to invite our panelists to engage with our guests and answer the questions directly. But thank you so much for your time. Would love to have another session with you guys, but it has been very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Juliet, Jo, and Barry.
Thank you so much.